Good morning. As children, we're given simple lessons on listening. Something like, sit down and shut up. But I was lucky enough to have one parent who encouraged me to ask questions. Most of us are taught that listening is a passive activity. But my mom was an active listener. Each week, I would spend my allowance going to the movies, and I'd come home, and I would tell her every detail of what happened. I never saw my mother actually attend a movie. And I doubt that she really wanted to hear about all 5 of the Planet of the Apes movies. But she would ask, well, then what happened? Or, slow down, I want to understand what you're saying. I felt listened to. At college, I was a psychology major, and freshman year, I volunteered with Big Brothers. And they gave us empathy training. They told us that it was not our role to give the kids advice or solve problems. We were to reflect their feelings. Did that make you sad? That sounds pleasing. Wow, how frustrating. Our job was to help the kids feel listened to. The kid I was assigned to was not too talkative. We mostly just played on the playground. I did not really get a chance to practice my newfound technique. As I continued my studies in psychology, I learned that this technique was based on the work of Carl Rogers, a humanist psychologist. He wrote, "We think we listen, but very rarely do we listen with real understanding, true empathy. Yet listening of this very special kind is one of the most potent forms of change I know." He lived from 1902 to 1987. His granddaughter, Frances Hooch, writes, "His lifetime of research and experiential work focused on demonstrating the psychological conditions for allowing open communication and the empowering of individuals. He pioneered the move away from traditional psychoanalysis and developed client-centered psychotherapy, which recognizes that each client has within him or herself the vast resources for self-understanding and for altering his or her self-concept, attitudes, and self-directed behavior. The counselor must be self-aware and completely genuine, with unconditional positive regard, must be non-judgmental and valuing the client. And with empathy, the counselor must strive to understand the client's perspective, experience from the client's perspective." Rogers based this treatment on others from learning that he had himself. He wrote, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." This principle is enshrined by the Unitarian Universalists in our 3rd principle, the acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. We as a religion do not have creeds. We do not tell people this is what you have to believe. Ideally, we accept people regardless of belief or non-belief. This non-judgmental attitude allows people to be non-defensive. Then we are free to explore others' beliefs and incorporate them into our own if we so desire, resulting in spiritual growth. It doesn't always happen perfectly, but we need to continually to remind ourselves that we should listen to understand rather than to win an argument. In his book, Freedom to Learn, Rogers wrote, "People are wonderful as sunsets if I let them be. When I look at a sunset, I don't find myself saying, 'Soften the orange a bit on the right-hand corner.' I do not try to control the sunset. I watch with awe as it unfolds." If I let myself really understand another person, I might be changed by that understanding. And we all fear change. So I say it is not an easy thing to permit oneself to understand an individual. To be with another in this empathetic way means that for the time being, you lay aside your own views and values to enter into another world without prejudice. In some sense, it means that you lay aside yourself. And this can only be done by people who are secure enough in themselves that they know they will not get lost in what might be a strange and bizarre world of the other, and that they can comfortably return to their own world whenever they wish. Another mentor on my road to compassionate listening is Marshall Rosenberg, who wrote a book called Nonviolent Communication. There are several principles that he outlines. First, our needs are universal. Everyone has the need to love and be loved. All people have some need to exercise control over their lives. We all have the need to eat and sleep. We all have a need for understanding of our environment. Secondly, all actions are attempts to meet needs. Some strategies are better than others. Take the need to have esteem. Braggarts will loudly state that they are the smartest, that they have the best words, the best plans, that they are rich, and that they have done the best job. Others will practice and learn and try to meet the external standards of excellence. And still others will set their own standards and feel no need to compare themselves to others. Third, and this is the most important, compassion and understanding is always possible at the level of need. We may disagree with another's political or emotional or behavioral strategy. We may not understand or like another one's words or deeds. We may not understand why they express rage, grief, or joy. But if we try to find the need that underlies these behaviors and feelings, we have to look beyond all the strategies that people try to make their lives work. In nonviolent communication, this is a 4-step process. Observation, feeling, need, and request. For example, it's like when I see, when I feel, because I need, would you be willing? And this is something one can practice in one's everyday conversation. It's like when I see your painting, I feel happy because I need beauty. Would you be willing to sell me a painting? Or in a difficult situation, when I hear music through my apartment walls at 2 a.m., I feel angry because I need sleep. Would you be willing to turn it down after 10 p.m.? It takes a lot of self-understanding and control to make requests this way. Many of us are just tempted to pound the wall and say, "Turn it down!" We might even call them names and add some colorful words to convey our intense urgency. All of this will probably make your neighbor defensive, and they will turn up the music to drown out your shouting. The purpose of nonviolent communications is for de-escalation. When you are making your observation, use the most bland and neutral language to describe the event. Then, own your own feelings and needs. Make I statements. I feel angry because I need sleep. Not, you make me angry because you're rude. That might be true, but that's not the way you're going to get what you want. Make a request in a way that addresses the situation and is possible for the other person to do. When someone comes at you with intense emotions, you can use the process in reverse. You're yelling. Are you angry? What do you need? What can I do? At any of these junctures, you may have to slow down and define terms. The person might say, "Oh, I am yelling because I forgot my hearing aids today. I feel sad because I need to communicate. Would you be willing to yell back at me?" Or, "I'm not angry. We just won the World Series. I need to celebrate. Will you join me?" Or, "Yes, I am angry, but not at you. I need to process this. Can you just listen and try not to fix the situation?" Be mindful of this 4-step process of observation, feeling, need, and request. When we do this, it helps us be less reactive and less likely to jump to false conclusions. And also be aware that you or they do not have to honor all requests. The solution you have might not be the best. Your neighbor might say, "Well, I turn up the music when my boyfriend comes over so you don't hear us." And you might respond that, indeed, you prefer to hear the music. But even if an issue is not resolved, if both people feel heard and understood, they know that you are a trustworthy person, and they maintain the relationship. You can't control how your brother votes, but you may be able to continue to interact in other aspects of your life. This is hard work. And when I had the honor of attending a workshop led by Marshall Rosenberg, I asked him, What do you do when you don't have the patience? What if you're tired of always being the reasonable one? And he replied, you need to do your grief work among friends you can trust. You tell the person that you need to stop for a while. And then retreat into a safe corner where you can cry, yell, and spit. Nonviolent communication includes listening to yourself and being aware of when you are unable to practice it and remove yourself from the situation. Now, Rogers' client-centered approach and Rosenberg's nonviolent communications work best when there is no deadline or goal, where maintaining the relationship is of utmost importance. But life is full of goals and deadlines. How do we negotiate our day-to-day lives when something's always pulling at us? We cannot keep stopping and having rap sessions and be-ins. Now, I am a hippie. I want to be a hippie. I want to sing with Yusuf Cat Stevens. I listen to the wind of my soul. Where I'll end up, God only knows. But life doesn't allow me to do that. A book I have found helpful is Crucial Conversations by Jerry Patterson, Joseph Grenny, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzer. I trust this book partly because it has 4 authors. I think of how much conflict I have within myself each time I write a sermon. I think that those who can overcome conflict with 3 other people to write a book might have something to teach me. They recommend start with the heart. Remember what you want for yourself and others. Do not go in to fight or flight. Wanting to win is a dialogue killer. It is the sucker's choice to attack or retreat. The third way is be honest and respectful. To help people remember this, they have a 5-step process. And they use the acronym STATE, S-T-A-T-E. S is for share your facts. Focus on behavior and not judgment. I saw a man kneel on another man's neck for over 8 minutes until that man died. And then tell your story, how you react to this. But when you have a conclusion, find a way to state it as a question rather than lecturing somebody. I wonder why this happens to a higher percentage of black people than white people. And then A, ask for another's path. What do you think is happening? T is to talk tentatively. Do not force your conclusion. Say it appears, it seems, perhaps. And encourage testing. Invite opposing views. The truth is usually able to stand scrutiny. Sometimes you will need to agree to disagree, and sometimes you will need to separate for your own safety. Like, it's not going to help much if you say, I see that you are holding a gun. Are you angry? I need to survive. would you be willing not to kill me? Probably not the time to enter into this type of debate. But if you agree, your work is not over. If you actually have this long debate, listening and interacting with another person who differs from you, you may come to an agreement. But that is not the end. Dialogue is not a decision. So we have to figure out a way to move to decision. And so the authors of Crucial Conversations talk about 4 ways that decisions are made. The first is a command decision. This is the best way when a quick decision is needed and the trust is high. People follow the recommendation of a trusted leader. A president, a minister, or a CAIO are paid to make decisions. And so you let them do it. Now this is best used when the leader is implementing an agreed upon policy. But some things are not so clear, and that leads to the second way of making a decision, and that is a consulting decision. The leader takes time to get as much information from as many people and from many different views before they take the responsibility of making the decision. For example, this congregation needs to decide when and if we can reopen our sanctuary. The congregation trusts the board to make that decision, but the board is not going to make that decision until they consult with the membership and they consult with the medical experts and they do lots of information gathering to help that decision be as safe and helpful to as many people as possible. And then there is the decision of a vote. This is really for easier decisions. Easy in the sense that one is assured that those who lose the election will accept the decision. As we approach this presidential election, we need to think, how will the winners of the next election make the losers feel included? If you felt excluded at the last election, should you exclude if you happen to win this one? What is the expectation? And this vote, however it turns out, will not solve the situation that this country is in. We must find a way, no matter who wins this election, to come to a consensus. And this is needed, that all must support a final decision when the stakes are very high. And this takes time and process and might take several elections before we sort it all out. People need to feel like they belong to this country. That is a need that we can share regardless of where we are in our political station. People need to feel like they belong to this country. But it's hard. We need to build a consensus around facts. And this is hard to do when one group claims alternative facts. And then there's, as good as this compassionate listening is, I've seen it used against people. Someone is very angry, and the tone police come in and say, you shouldn't shout. And they ignore the fact that you kneeled respectfully during the national anthem in silence, that you wrote letters to the editor, to say now that people shouldn't shout because it's not following standard compassionate conversation. We shouldn't expect compassionate conversation from people who we've been abusing for years, centuries. Compassionate listening is not telling another person they're not following the rules. It's taking the responsibility to follow the rules for ourselves. And that is the spiritual and difficult issue. And it becomes so much more difficult when you have a group of people who have alternative facts. How do you have a conversation with someone you believe is delusional? Well, I went looking for advice, and the British Columbia Schizophrenic Society says, do not reason, argue, or challenge the delusion. Attempting to disprove the delusion is not helpful and will create mistrust. Those who believe in QAnon take your denial and your evidence as proof that you are part of the conspiracy. Try to assure the person that they are safe and no harm will come to them. Maybe get the sense of what people are afraid of and see what they might have in strategies to deal with this fear. Encourage the person to verbalize the feelings of anxiety and fear and insecurity. Offer concern and protection to prevent injury to themselves and others. And convey acceptance of the need for the false belief. You don't have to agree that QAnon exists, but underneath that, there's a need. And try to say, I don't want people to be pedophilias. I don't want people to worship Satan. I worry about a common understanding of what guides us as a nation. And while focusing on that need, you focus on building a trusting relationship with the person, rather than the need to control their symptoms. Remain calm. I have a song that I wrote and Gail sings that says, I want to burn your Confederate flag. It's just a no good, racist, traitorous rag. I wrote that song 15 years ago. I've yet to burn a flag. I've yet to say that to someone's face. Because I know that that's not the way that change is going to happen. It's hard. You're not going to convince the person who is your polar opposite. But you may have conversations that are possible with people who are in the middle and don't know who to listen to. That's where we should focus our energy. In the MIT Technology Review, Tanya Basso wrote, an article called How to Talk to Conspiracy Theorists and Still Be Kind. She wrote this as part of her response to being on Reddit, on internet chat lines where people just throw bombs and they don't show any empathy. They're just about making slogans and memes that score points. And not surprisingly, her recommendations are similar to those for people suffering delusions. But she adds, go private. When she sees someone post something problematic on social media, she doesn't pile on in the comments section. I might send out a personal text and say, is there a time that we can talk? Because the nature of social media just does not allow the nuance of compassionate listening. And then she recommends test the waters first. This saves yourself time and energy. You can ask, what would it take to change your mind? And if they say they never will change their mind, then you should take them at their word, respect that, and don't even bother engaging. If there is a willingness, use the Socratic method. In other words, use questions to help others probe their own argument. Ask them about their experience. How did they discover their opinion, their belief? And ask them how their belief helps them, how their actions help them. And as they start to analyze these things, they might come up with a different answer than what they started with. The best way to change someone's view is to make them feel like they've uncovered it themselves. That means engaging in back and forth questions and answers until you hit a dead end and they gently point out inconsistencies. I've been a minister for 25 years and I've been a pretty laissez-faire leader. My summary of my philosophy has been, as I look back, repeat something until somebody thinks it's their own idea, and then give them credit and praise for it. Because people want to feel like they have control, that they have a way out. If you use your language to shame somebody, or if you say, I'm the expert, I know and you don't, people will naturally become defensive. And just realize that some people don't want to change no matter the facts. So if it gets bad, stop. Listen to Marshall Rosenberg. Withdraw and do your grief work. We like to think that we're intelligent and we can convince people to believe and act the way we want to, if only they would really listen. And sometimes we keep on banging our head against the wall and it's not going to happen, or they might start banging back, not with words, but with violence. We need to be safe and keep ourselves safe. And also remember that every little bit helps. Tanya Basu says, one conversation will probably not change a person's mind. That's okay. People aren't going to have seismic beliefs all at once. Sometimes you can shift someone's perspective a little, like water eroding a rock. You won't debunk the conspiracy theory, but you might lay the path for someone to do so in the future. So in these troubling times, as your minister, I encourage you to try compassionate listening whenever you can. But first, be compassionate to yourselves. As Carl Rogers recommends, only engage when you are feeling strong and when you can make sure that you can safely walk away if it gets too tense. Let go of the need for immediate results. Hard power is valued in this world. Domination feels good. It is a temptation. I gave him what for and that shut his mouth. But it really doesn't solve anything. Compassion and love are soft powers. In the moment, it will always seem like you are losing. Imagine yourself as a wave crashing on the shore. At each encounter, it seems like the rocks are winning. Stay connected to the sea. After each clash destroys you, return to the source of your power, whatever that may be. Take rest in the sea of love until you are ready to try again. Trust that others will be waves when you're unable to be a wave, and they are with you in this cause of compassion. And know eventually that the rocks will wash into the sea, and you and the rocks will become one, and you will be one with everything. May you bless and be blessed. Please take time now to join in singing For All That Is Our Lives, led by Rebecca Shelby and accompanied by Judy Harrison.